worst weight management experience was blank, what would you say?
Probably 3 or 4 experiences that come to mind pretty quickly. Um, the first kind of story was actually when I was a sophomore in high school. I was growing quickly. We had just finished season up. I competed at 140 or 145, and it was an off-season tournament the day after Easter. And the weight class was 152, and I remember getting on the scale, I was like 164, and I'm like 12 over. And when you don't have as much muscle mass, you can't lose as much as easily. It's just water weight when you're losing it that close to competition. If you're not more than 2 weeks out, you're not losing anything other than water weight. So basically, the day after Easter, me and a buddy just went to the wrestling room, and we worked out 3 times, and we didn't leave the wrestling room all day. We'd get done with the workout, we'd sit there, we'd chill out for an hour or two, get recovered, and do it again. And I made weight for the first day, and then I ended up so it was a 2-style tournament. So I made weight for Greco, and then when it came to freestyle, I stepped on the scale with like 24 hours before the weigh-ins, and I was back to 13 over after wrestling 7 matches that day. And I just talked to my dad, and I said, Dad, I don't want to get back down to 152. And I had super supportive parents. They weren't the crazy wrestling parents. My dad said, then don't do it. Wrestle what you weigh. And but that I think had I not cut the weight that I did beforehand, I think I would have had more success at that tournament, and that kind of set the tone for it. Didn't really have too many issues other than that until my sophomore year of college.
But yeah, I mean, I've had tough weight cuts, and I never missed weight. I was always very probably anal about making sure I was close enough. Some people are a little bit more loose with it and always think, I'll just wait till the end and I'll make it. I was always afraid that I wanted to wrestle. So I was always afraid that if I didn't make weight, then I wouldn't be able to wrestle. And, so everything kind of centered around that. But I had a few that were tough. I got sick one time on a trip to Virginia and was several pounds over and then woke up sick the next day. And that was the only time I told Johnson that I was like, I don't think I can make it. And he's like, you're going to make it. Like this is a new age weight cutting. We're not losing as much, but I was sick and not feeling good. And, but I ended up making it, ended up, pushing through and ellipticals and treadmills and trying to get there. So,
I've seen kids look pretty bad. I saw a kid crap himself in the middle of a match from taking a diuretic or taking a pill to help him lose weight, and had to run off the mat. And I've seen kids not look good, and it affected their performance. But even something as crazy as if standing on your head right before a weigh-in for 5, you can lose a half a pound to a pound standing on your head. I don't know the physics of it, but in the blood displacement, but I've done it myself, and I seen it just a few years ago at a regional where a kid making weight was overweight, and his last ditch effort, he stood on his head and got on the scale and made weight. And even though that is supposed to, you're not allowed to do, they let him do it, but the refs are not even supposed to allow that because that is considered a weight cutting technique.
The only time I really really did some hard cutting was definitely when I was younger. I was only like a senior or junior in high school for judo. I remember they sent us to Sweden to fight in this big tournament. I won it the year before. I just couldn't get my weight down. And I remember me and one of my buddies, teammates from New York, we were just dying, like we're on the sauna on the ground. Finally, I'm like, I'm not sweating at all. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to put on plastics and go run for 45, 50 minutes, and I ended up making the weight, but I had no power in me. I had no energy. I was worthless. And I was going to stay at that weight, just manage my weight better. But some crazy things happened. Me and my brother was the same weight as me. So what happened was I was younger and my brother was doing some good results at the time. So, we had to talk with my dad, and I'm like, Dad, I'll go up. I don't care. I'm like, me and my brother don't need to fight in tournaments. I'm like, I'll go up. So I bumped up a weight, and I was always eating, always healthy. I always had energy for the most part, and I ended up getting better results because I had more power.
I gave my word I wasn't going to miss weight, so I never did. And that came with some implications. My certification process, I had to get down in weight to be able to certify, and my lowest possible weight was 183.8. So I couldn't be below 183.8, and I couldn't be above 184. And that gives you very, very small room for error, a very small margin. I remember specifically Madison Square Garden. We wrestled grapple at the Garden, and we get to Madison Square Garden, and you're supposed to have access to a training mat or a facility to lose weight 1 hour before weigh-ins. That's like an NCAA rule. We show up an hour and 30, they've got us locked out in the cold in freezing New York in December or whatever it was. We're waiting. They finally let us in with 45 minutes to go. I throw on a winter coat, my coach's winter coat, hat, gloves, everything. And I'm just going as hard as I can because I'm worried I'm not going to make weight. And it's a dual format, so you can't let your teammates down. Those are your brothers. That's who you got to go to war with. So I remember I'm getting down. I said, it's very, very interesting. Over time, you start to develop this sense on your body weight. Even to today, someone can look at me, what are you weighing right now? And I can be within a pound or two all the time. I know where I'm at. But when you're getting down on weight, you're even more so locked in. And I remember looking at my coach and telling him, hey, I'm good. He said, hey, you got 10 more minutes. Just keep going in case you're not. I said, all right, like I feel like I'm good though. I know where my weight's at. So I keep going. I get all of that off to check finally when that 10 minutes is up. I step on the scale, I'm 182. So I'm 2 pounds under and I'm below my certification limit. So then I had to drink up, and all that they had there was just straight Gatorade. And I don't know if you've ever been super dehydrated and then you just take straight Gatorade, like your body doesn't process all those carbs and sugar super well. So I drink some of that and I'm getting up to right where I need to be. And I sit down and it was real cold too, the Gatorade. And before I know it, I just started shaking uncontrollably, And they were trying to get me to stop before I got on the scale because they were afraid for medical checks. They weren't going to let me through. But they asked me, I said, oh, I'm just really cold. And they let me go through or whatever. And I don't really remember too much after that until my match time. It was kind of like I went into, a sugar shock almost from being so low in weight and then putting in just so much pure sugar. That was definitely a horror story. And these events, along with this third story, we went to UVA. It was a 3-hour drive. I get up there, I get my weight off, make weight, wrestle, and then we got a 3-hour drive back. So I was one of the first matches. So say the duel was an hour and a half. Then we drive back to 3 hours. So 4.5, say 5 hours later, just to be safe. And when we get back, my weight specific coach said, hey, let's get you on the scale. Let's see what you weigh. Now we were going to have a week off after this match. So I was going wild on that car ride back. I was eating pretzels and downing Gatorade and anything I could get my hands on. We stopped at a gas station. And I mean, that was the worst possible move probably because I was eating, I don't even know, Speedway hot dogs or something. And I get on the scale and I was 207 pounds, basically 5 hours after making 184. So I put on 23 pounds in 5 hours. And he said, like, this is ridiculous, man. This is not what you're supposed to do. You can't be doing this. And he really ripped me apart on that one. So those events kind of shaped the way that they approached the NCAA tournament my sophomore year. I qualified, I made weight, and then they come to me after I made weight, and they didn't tell me this before I made weight because they knew that I wouldn't have been happy with it. They said, you can't weigh more than 190 tonight when you go to wrestle. So they were checking me throughout the whole process. They didn't want me to bust weight after, making my first match or whatever. So I wrestled my first match. I drew the 3 seed of the tournament. Pretty close match, but I ended up losing. And then they keep me down in weight. By the time I wrestled my second match of the tournament, I was just dead. I was dead tired. I never got the opportunity to recover, to replenish that stuff. And I understand why they did it, but it was kind of at that moment I said, this is not worth it. Sacrificing performance and personal happiness in the hopes of doing a little better is not where it's at. I don't want to be the best weight cutter. I want to be the best wrestler.